How can a character be so misguided, miserable, and misogynistic,
There are no girls with good personalities.
and yet have hundreds of people, both male and female, pointing at the screen and saying, "That's literally me"? You can say this about any character in every work of Easton Ellis, an author who I've always admired. His novels contain parables about the disillusioned privileged youth who are lost and don't know what to believe in. In this video, I want to examine 5 main characters from the Bret Easton Ellis universe, specifically 5 male main characters. I'll also be examining the American Psycho film, the Rules of Attraction film, and the Less Than Zero film. Before I examine these 5 male main characters, I want to understand why these stories are so enticing, both on screen and in text, and why they work so well in literature. First, there's ambiguity in these stories, such as Patrick Bateman's supposed psychopathy in American Psycho, and Sean and Paul's possible romance in The Rules of Attraction. A lot of his novels play with perspective, with people recounting things that happen and what each character sees. This allows the directors of the film to play with the audience and to show them what's happening and not tell them. Ellis also writes in very cinematic terms. Essentially, his books are written to be little movies, perfect for directors to interpret into their films. As you can see here, he often uses film terms like montage and smash cut in his novels, but he also uses other things like whip pan, fade out, and zoom in. Directors can use these film terms from the novel and adapt them into the actual movie. His books are also very intertextual. For example, he uses music as a motif in his novels, and fashion brands as well.
Where did you get that overnight bag?
Jean-Paul Gaultier.
That translate well on screen due to how visual and auditory they are. So, with these signature artistic features, it's no wonder that Ellis's novels are fit for cinematic adaptations. Now on to the main characters from these stories. There's Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, a shrewd and ultra-masculine Wall Street banker. Sean Bateman and Paul Denton from The Rules of Attraction, the former being a stoic, drugged-out party boy, and the latter being a sensitive, cynical admirer of Sean's. There's Victor, the dumb and sadistic male model from Glamorama, and Clay from Less Than Zero, the detached and alienated observer. Bret Easton Ellis's novels explore masculinity through alienation, identity, and wealth, while the cinematic adapters of the novels must convey these complex themes using the language of cinema. Each of Bret Easton Ellis's novels follow masculine men who have a crisis in their masculinity and either abstain from the social conditions they are part of or further entrench themselves in the dark underbelly of their culture. All of these characters are some flavor of sexist, homophobic, racist, and commit terrible acts. Patrick beats up homeless men, rapes women, and kills people. Paul and Sean spend the majority of their screen time having no empathy for anyone other than themselves. All of these characters partake in heavy drug use. So, why are these men sympathetic? Well, for one, it's hard to take them seriously because of how exaggerated they are. Patrick is an extremely machismo man who crumbles when someone says they like someone else's business card more than his. Sean is always on drugs and saying dorky phrases like rock and roll. His delusional love for the other character, Lauren, comes from him accidentally thinking she's his secret admirer, and for no reason he falls head over heels for her after saying maybe no more than a sentence to her. Paul is similarly like Sean, except this time he's lusting after Sean, constantly finding ways to seek his attention. Victor is a clueless male model who unknowingly gets himself involved in a terrorist organization. And Clay, while the most morally solid and normal one of the group, is still very negative and spends time with people who are constantly devolving themselves into illegal and debaucherous acts. While these characters are ridiculous, I think Ellis uses these characters to help the viewers understand the world around these characters. Oftentimes, the supporting characters of the story are either making the protagonist succumb to immense peer pressure or committing acts that are worse than the protagonists themselves. One of the most horrifying moments from a Bret Easton Ellis novel, in my opinion, comes when Rip, a supporting character in Less Than Zero, reveals he has a 12-year-old sex slave hidden in his basement. While the revelation is nothing new from disturbing to be featured in Ellis's works, it's one of the few times we see the psyche of someone in Ellis's world. In the novel, Rip says, "Hey, don't look at me like I'm some sort of scumbag. I'm not." And to what Clay responds is, "I don't think it's right." And Rip's final statement is, "What's right? If you want something, you have the right to take it. If you want to do something, you have the right to do it." And the horrifying thing is that these characters are often rewarded for this thought process. In a 2000 interview with Charlie Rose, Christian Bale talks of how people advised him against playing Bateman, but Bale argues that Bateman is more of a comedic character than a villain. He argues that Bateman is unredeeming, but finds himself in ridiculous situations and acts accordingly in a ridiculous manner. The backdrop of Ellis's stories are very cold. The rich kids of private colleges, Los Angeles and its wealthy families, 80s Wall Street and the heyday of money and narcissism, and the modeling world filled with superficial beauty standards and extreme cases of wealth and glamour. The characters are so alienated from others and humanity that it makes sense for them to copy the actions of the cruel and apathetic world around them, because what is their alternative? Another aspect of Bret Easton Ellis's work, the biggest theme I would argue, is ambiguity. In The Rules of Attraction, Sean Bateman becomes infatuated with the other main character, Lauren, in the case of mistaken identity, but Lauren later states in the novel that it doesn't really matter. The 3 points of view of these 3 main characters in The Rules of Attraction have very little overlap while they tell the same story, and it doesn't matter really because of how detached they all are from each other. This detachment from identity further demonstrates the alienations the character feel. In Glamorama, Victor has a body double that makes him question who he actually is, and in American Psycho, the big reveal at the end of the novel is that Patrick is unsure if he actually committed these murders in the first place. Why does this ambiguity make the character sympathetic? Well, in our current culture, AI, media, and technology have all led us to question ourselves, what is real? Do consequences matter for us too, as people? And if they don't, can we behave like these characters? In Disappear Here, Violence After Generation X, Naomi Mandel writes that characters are constantly wandering around with their emotions displaced and misplaced, and no one can keep track of who, what, when, where, and why. She says that Ellis's novels blur the distinction between reality and fiction, objection and violence, and underline the moral nature of the grounds in which these judgments are made. According to Mandel, Ellis's works are a critique of consumerism in the late 20th century. We have seen the commercials, and we've seen how objects and products are made. We know we're being sold to, but there's nothing we can do about it other than sit down and listen. And that's what his characters do, sit down and listen. Upon watching American Psycho, I was struck by how eerie Patrick Bateman's morning routine is. I've seen these routines all throughout TikTok and social media. It makes the person feel like a commodity, and I only see it growing larger and larger in our current world as days go by. In Glamorama, Victor is ultimately a pawn in both his modeling and terrorist career. He has absolutely no agency. In the climax of the book, Victor is calling his own sister, crying from all the trauma he endured, begging for help or someone to listen to him, and his sister mindlessly ignores him and verifies their lunch plans for the next day before hanging up. Mendel states that the detachment all these characters experience comes from a desire to protect themselves from the outside world. Because of that, they lose their humanity. By the end of Rules of Attraction, each character remains heartbroken, unable to find the love that they were once searching for. Clay, from Less Than Zero, witnesses horrors all around him but remains voiceless due to the status quo and the sheer numbers against him. No one around Patrick, other than maybe his secretary Jean, seems to care about his existence or recognize him, and the reasoning for most of the things he does, well, I'll let him say it, as he says it
I
best.
hate that job anyway. See why you just don't quit.
Because I want to fit in.
I think that because cinema is more objective, we can see the world of these characters outside of them, and we can see the cold background where these characters have to experience life through more clearly. I think American Psycho and The Rules of Attraction work as successful adaptations of their respective novels. We can see the satire of these films, from Christian Bale's over-the-top, ridiculous performance as Patrick Bateman, and James Van Der Beek's portrayal of Sean Bateman, with a constant boneheaded scowl, posed like he's trying to be the coolest person in the room. We see moments of characters, such as Paul, acting absolutely ridiculous, dismissing a friend's supposed overdose in hopes to find extra time to dress up for his date with Sean. In an interview with Charlie Rose, Mary Harron talks about the challenges of adapting a novel with a small storyline. Marin and Bale discuss the business card scene and the comedy of the scene, and Ellis also says that the comedy will be better seen in the film than in the book. The film also distorts time, with American Psycho making every scene in the day and the night look pretty similar in terms of lighting. The Rules of Attraction also follows this rule, and it jumps between showing the same scene from different perspectives, distorting time. It'll even run the same scenes backwards, further distorting time. In contrast to the American Psycho and The Rules of Attraction film, I think the Less Than Zero film adaptation doesn't work as a successful adapter of its novel. The film adaptation completely erases the satire of the original story and follows a linear, conventional story. The non-linear story from the novel, where Clay is going from party to party and talking from person to person, is completely gone, and so is his conflicted persona. In lieu of this conflicted persona, Clay just immediately becomes the good guy who saves the day, rather than the morally ambiguous outsider that the novel portrays him to be. The story becomes some kind of rescue story, with little to none of the violence, satire, or gratuity that Ellis's works rely on. In the 21st century, we are constantly living under surveillance, materialism, and corporate greed. Anyone can become complicit or act badly if they lose their humanity. But these books and films serve as a reminder to keep the compassion we have, not only for ourselves, but for each other. Or else, who knows what we will become.